Alrighty, it's another episode of I Got Next. My name is Anthony Mercer. Super excited about giving you all another episode today. So today I kind of want to do something a little different, and I kind of want to start something new. So what we're doing is we're starting a new segment. We'll do a once or twice a month called Local Stars. And so essentially what this is all about is we have given entertainers, artists, athletes so much love, so much admiration, loyalty, all that stuff, right? And I think it's important for us to carve out the respect, love, and admiration for people in Charlotte that do the work every single day. And today we got my girl, Jess! So we got Jess here today. We're going to talk about mental health and how it's important and just kind of raising awareness for that. I think that's important. So Jess, we're definitely happy to have you for sure.
Yes, I'm excited to be here. I'm a little nervous, my first podcast, but I'm excited.
Nice. So kind of knowing you for a little while now, I know you work in the mental health space. Kind of give me just kind of tell me a little about your why and why mental health is a passion for you.
Yeah, so as a kid, I don't know if you remember like BuzzFeed, but they had all those like pop quizzes on which character are you in The Simpsons, which character are you in this movie or whatever. Right. I was always interested in like understanding which person I related to. Mm-hmm. And it was just a way for me to like understand another little piece about myself. I did like the Myers-Briggs test, the StrengthsFinders test, like always trying to just understand myself. And I think that really is rooted in my mom being an immigrant from Nigeria, not knowing too much about that culture. And then my dad's side is just Black American. So never feeling like I really fit in either space. I always was just interested in understanding myself. So when I first went to college, therapy was like not on my mind at all. I wanted to be a pediatrician. Okay. I was in a biology living and learning community and going about, school, everything was great until I got to chemistry. Had to retake Chem 1. Okay. Passed it. Got to Chem 2. Had to retake Chem 2, and after all, I was like, okay, maybe this isn't for me. Okay. I took a sociology class, and I fell in love with human behavior and understanding human interactions, how you can understand things about people based on how they interact with you or how they interact in groups. And so I changed my major to sociology, got to senior year, and quickly realized that there's not really it doesn't set you up to go into a career. Just having a sociology degree, sure, you could be a professor, sure, you could maybe be a teacher, but I didn't want to really do either of those things at that time. And it led to me learning more about social work. One of the professors had asked me if I considered being a social worker. And what I knew at that point was a social worker is someone who works at DSS or Child Protective Services. And it's a ton of case management. And again, I just was not interested in that. Okay. But then they explained all the different things that a social worker can do, like working in a doctor's office, which kind of is what sparked my interest on helping people deal with, hearing the things that they hear from their doctor. You could work in a lawyer's office, helping people navigate divorces or traumatic experiences in car accidents or whatever. And so I was like, okay, I can actually move around. That's always been my thing, is just not being put into a box. So I eventually went through social work, and then the human behavior piece kind of came up when I started doing the clinical social work stuff. which is again where I fell in love again, which led me to applying for like licensure to be a clinical social worker. And my career started out working in substance use, so rehab centers where I was working with mothers and children. And now I work in an outpatient facility at a behavioral health hospital, helping people who deal with psychotic disorders. So kind of like the furthest end of, the acuity spectrum. I think being a therapist has really helped me navigate a lot of things in my personal life. I think we'll get into that a little bit later, unless you want to dive into that now.
Yeah. So like, my question to you is have you had personally, maybe before you became a therapist, or maybe even now, have you had any experiences with therapy yourself?
Yeah, for sure. In grad school, I was in therapy just because it was a lot, like not knowing really what I wanted to do. Like I was mentioning with like senior year coming up, I'm about to graduate and I don't know, what there is to do with my degree. So going to therapy definitely helped with kind of understanding like you don't always need to have a plan. Just like trusting the process, knowing that, okay, like you're checking, a major thing off on your list is graduating college. And then you're going to grad school. So like, you don't really need to worry about that right now. Like, that there's so many opportunities for you once you have your MSW. So it just kind of helped me with like perspective and understanding that although my feelings were valid, they weren't fact. And I was like really internalizing a lot of that fear and that doubt and a little bit of imposter syndrome, which I still deal with now. And then later on in life, I moved to Charlotte, and it was tough being here on my own. And so I went back into therapy just to, process through some of those, like, again, those feelings that I was internalizing. I think that is kind of where people get stuck, is they feel something and then they become that feeling instead of finding ways to externalize it, like understand I'm just experiencing this now. This isn't who or what I am. This experience isn't who or what I am. And then my mom actually had a stroke and experienced some psychotic symptoms like 2022, 2023, which, again, like was one of the things that being a therapist really helped me navigate that. Obviously I can't do therapy on my own mom, but helping me have like so much empathy for her, because it is very difficult being a caregiver. For sure. So yeah, I feel like, the skills that I've learned and that I help teach people every day, like I'm reinforcing that in myself. Okay. Yeah.
Well, nice. I think personally for me, I've had experiences going to therapy as well. And I definitely do think it definitely helped me out for sure. And I think that if I had not gone to therapy, I probably would be in the same place mentally as I was then. So one of the things I kind of want to ask is, what are like some like stigmas or like myths about, mental health that may not be true, or maybe some misconceptions?
Yeah, I think people think going to therapy is like a sign of weakness. Like, especially in the Black community, we are taught to be strong. You don't let anybody see all of the issues that you've got going on. You do what you got to do and you come home and you deal with it. You don't discuss family business outside of family, which is false. Like, your therapist is not there to judge you. They're there to kind of help you process through those feelings and those experiences that you're dealing with. It's an opportunity for you to kind of like talk out loud about all the things that are going on through your head. You mentioned you would still be in that same place. People really get stuck because it's just all like looping and ruminating in their heads. They don't have like that outlet, whether it's talking or like through creativity. I think a lot of times people assume that your therapist has all the answers, which is not true at all. I promise your therapist is also dealing with their own stuff. They're just skilled at helping you get from point A to point B. Like, you already know your goal, whether it's you want to be happy or you want to be in a different position at work or you want to fix, a relationship with somebody. You already know the end goal, and you pretty much, you have everything within you, the strengths and the skills to get you there. Your therapist is there to just like hold up a mirror to you and say, okay, but do you see this? Do you see this? What about this? And just help guide you and support you and assist you along the way. But the client is the one who does 95% of the work.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So, and I think you speak to something that's amazing. I kind of want to also ask an additional question as well. What happens when someone is in a place where they may be at a point where they're seeing some mental instability? What happens a lot of times to people mentally when they don't go to therapy? Mm-hmm. Like, what do you think happens? I know, and this is kind of gonna walk into kind of like the coping mechanisms mm-hmm. part of it. Like, how do we cope? And just being honest, just to speak a little bit about my story, is prior to me going to therapy, I kind of indulged into a little bit of the overindulgence of alcohol, mm-hmm. right? Just being transparent about that and what that kind of and what that did. I think for a lot of us who are dealing with issues in our lives or dealing with we feel like our mental health is in shambles, a lot of us resort to the alcohol or resort to the blunt, or mm-hmm. we may resort to the pills or the drugs or anything like that. Also, I think what's important to realize is a lot of us cope to a lot of those things I've mentioned, but one thing that I did along with the alcohol was the burnout, mm-hmm. the overworking, mm-hmm. right? Working all these jobs, 70, 80 an hour work weeks, and I'm not handling those internal issues, mm-hmm. right? I'm just working. So I think one thing that I think the audience could be a blessing for them is, what are some different coping mechanisms that are healthy mm-hmm. that would definitely prompt somebody to get in a better mental space?
Yeah, I think you definitely hit the nail on the head. Like, everyone copes, right? It's just, is it a healthy coping skill? Mm-hmm. If you're like indulging in vices, whether it's alcohol, drug use, super overly sexual behavior, like things that kind of are filling a hole that you have. But then there's also like distraction coping mechanisms where you're overworking yourself or you're hanging out with, friends, which is good, but if you're never giving yourself that time to process or kind of think about or reflect on, your experiences, you never get past it. And my approach to therapy, I try not to kind of dig too much into the details because that can be re-traumatizing. But I think it is important to talk about the feelings, the emotions, the physical sensations, things like that you've experienced and how we can help you not experience that again. So to get into some coping skills, there's a ton of stuff, but I always like to give things that people can do immediately on their own without, a lot of prerequisites or instruction. So mindfulness, right? Being really present in the moment, grounding yourself to where you are now, instead of kind of getting pulled into your head. So there's one that's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's a grounding activity where you really focus on your senses. I'm also really big into somatic therapy. So understanding that your body, feeling safe is going to be the best thing for you in the moment when you're dealing with a lot of stress or a lot of, sadness or anger. There's also meditation, and I know it can be hard to sit and just, people think you need to clear your mind for meditation, but that's not what it is. It's more so of noticing and being curious about your thoughts and then letting it pass, not getting stuck on it. But there's a lot of great guided meditation videos on YouTube that people can use. One thing that I really like is EFT tapping, and there are a lot of great instructional videos on YouTube. I won't get into like too much details. It's a lot of, back information, but that's a really great source. Journaling, breath work, like really simple things that we kind of overlook are really, really great coping skills.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. The next question I'll kind of speak to. I think for me, like a healthy coping mechanism I do is go to the gym.
Yes.
Go to the gym. I think that's something that's definitely healthy. I love going to Hot Works. I don't know what it is about just hopping on that bike and getting in that 140 degree sauna. When I'm in there and I'm just sweating and getting a workout in, I'm in there.
It's cathartic. A release.
Yeah, I'm in there for like 45 minutes, and after that I feel much better. I also think one thing that I like is playing spades, right? I think that's a aspect as well.
Community is really important.
No, definitely, it definitely is, and I know you've had your fair share of wins. Okay. You've had your fair share of wins against me. So, but nonetheless, I definitely feel great when I'm playing spades. So one other thing that I'll ask as well is, people may be dealing with all different sorts of problems, all different sorts of issues, and so when should someone seek help? Are there any indicators, just like, okay, if you're experiencing this or if you're going through this, then this is when you need to say, okay, I need to make a decision, I need to go into therapy? Like, when should someone seek assistance?
I would say anytime that something is affecting your ability to just live your daily routine, your daily life. So if you're struggling to get out of bed and brush your teeth and shower, if you're, struggling to like maintain focus at work, you're noticing your performances is, declining, like your supervisor is getting on you. If your friends are pointing things out, like, hey, you're quiet lately, we haven't seen you around much, things like that. And then also, obviously, like, if you're having thoughts of suicide or homicide, thoughts of self-harm, a lot of times people think of suicidal ideation as like, I want to slit my wrist or I want to hang myself. But sometimes it can be as simple as, I would be okay if I went to sleep and I didn't wake up, right? So some passive suicidal ideation. That's not like, call for like, oh, go to the, inpatient unit and, be there for weeks. But I think it is a sign that maybe things are getting too much for you to handle on your own. And again, like, that's all therapy is just to have somebody there to guide, support, and assist you through getting over the obstacle that you're in.
So how, if someone says, hey, I'm at a point where, I want to seek help, I want to seek assistance, where, like, how does somebody have access to that, right? Because I know for me, when I had therapy, like, my job, like, the insurance didn't cover it. I had to pay for it out of pocket. Shout out to Andrea. She was absolutely amazing. The lady I had, she was excellent. But kind of just want to walk into access to therapy. Like, is there, any community resources people can kind of tap into, where they can kind of get that assistance if needed?
Yeah, so you mentioned your job. That's very unfortunate, right? There are a lot of jobs that do have like an EAP, employee assistance program, which I say abuse that as much as you can. Basically what it is they give you a certain number of sessions to address a problem, a specific problem. So what I recommend, and I don't care if I, get in trouble for saying something like this, but abuse it, right? If your initial problem is you're having relationship issues. Go there and you get your 5 sessions because you're having a lot of arguments with your partner. After that's done, you go back. Your new issue is, oh, we're trying to figure out financial stuff, right? Still using those free sessions. You go back for a 3rd issue, a 4th issue, right? Like, abuse that. It's there to use. It's a resource. It's free for the most part. But it's like short, brief, solution focused therapy. So it's a set number of sessions, but if they allow you to go back and like reuse that, continue doing that. That's, a free source. If you're in a situation where your job doesn't have a program like that, you can ask if a provider does a sliding scale where they use your income to kind of adjust how much an out-of-pocket expense would be. So if you're making $30K and the session's like $120 out of pocket, maybe they could get it down to 40 or 50, which is, I think it's still kind of expensive. But I'm also someone who like is a big advocate for free, access to mental health, like at least the basic skills, which I am working on something coming very soon about that. But there's also like teaching universities, people go and get like the cheap haircuts at like the Paul Mitchell, student salon. Right. They're also like teaching, colleges that their students are gaining experience. Obviously it's not somebody who's like licensed or a professional or has years of experience, but is not much difference than seeing, somebody who's like fresh out of college. And they're being supervised, so like they're not, just giving you random advice. Like they're actually taking it seriously. For the most part, everyone I know who is in the mental health field, they have a really big passion for it, and they actually care about seeing people succeed.
Right.
So yeah, those are just some options that you can utilize.
Nice. I think that's amazing. And I think if you're watching, I would definitely take note to what she's saying. And if you definitely do feel like you're in a place where you need to, need some assistance, those are definitely some great resources that she definitely mentioned. I also want to kind of speak about, one thing kind of in particular that's super, super prevalent with the youth these days and really anybody. And I just want to ask, in your opinion, how has social media impacted the youth, but also everyday people when it comes to mental health? How has social media had an impact on the everyday person?
Yeah, I would say not even just the youth, but like our age, millennials, right. Like we grew up, we were there when it first launched and it became big, and MySpace and Facebook, all that, Bebo. I think it takes away from how much ownership you have over your thoughts. Because you are getting so much information, our attention spans have definitely decreased, mine included. I'm not unsusceptible to like the mindless scrolling. Obviously I try to create more than I consume, but I think it's so easy to like fall into like, oh, that's cool, oh, that's cool, oh, that's interesting, or I like that. There are a lot of trends that are on social media. I will say I think it has made it easier to have conversations about mental health. I won't say that it's less stigmatized, because there's a lot of like self-diagnosing. There's a lot of pop psychology where terms are being completely misused. Everybody's a narcissist. Like the information that people are getting about mental health, I think, is not necessarily accurate or valid a lot of the times. A lot of mental health creators are more concerned about like the clicks and the views and how much they can make off of your problems, rather than like really just focused on helping and providing accurate information. It's like they'll dangle the carrot, and like you're like, okay, they've got this coping skill that I enjoyed, so now I'm gonna go back, but now it's like, now you gotta pay for my subscription service to right. I think a lot of people obviously like make money off of it if you can, but I think sometimes it does kind of turn into like really predatory practices. And yeah, like the self-diagnosing, not everyone is depressed, not everyone has autism, not everyone has ADHD, you know, like there's so much that goes into like diagnosing, you know, and only a professional can really do that. But if you do have concerns, obviously go seek professional help. Yeah, I think, you know, we're moving in the right direction. But I think there's still a lot of work to do on social media about mental health and talking about it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. You hit the nail on the head. I agree 1000%. I think when it comes to the youth, I think for so many people who are just mindlessly just scrolling throughout the day, what ends up happening is your daily life kind of changes because you're trying to acquiesce to what you see on social media. And what's mind-blowing is a lot of the youth, they don't have a sense of identity and they don't know who they are. And so what ends up happening is they're scrolling on social media and it's like, I want to be this, or I want to do this, and I want to do that. And what ends up happening is they attach themselves to all these different groups. And in reality, it's like, that's not even you.
Right.
You know? And I think one of the big aspects of the youth, whether it be 12, 13, 14, 15, whatever the case may be, it's so important that you know who you are.
Yeah.
When people are mindlessly scrolling on social media, they're trying to be everything else but themselves. They're trying to be everybody else but themselves. And I think once you get into your 20s, I think so many people have this like identity crisis because you was trying to be something 5 years ago.
Right.
And now the channels have changed. Now you're trying to be something else. And it's like you change every few years. Whatever the trend is, that's who you are, right? And I think that's definitely a problem, right? And I definitely do think that a lot of people, even in our age range, right? They are whatever they want to. They're whatever they see on social media, and I think that's definitely a problem. And I think, you know, it's an issue. I know for myself, sometimes it's okay to take a break.
Yes.
It's 1000% okay to take a break.
Yes.
You know, moderation is everything, right? And sometimes you need to take a step back and reclaim and make sure you're still staying kind of, you know, who you are. Stay true to yourself 1000%. And I think that's something that's, you know, definitely, something that's definitely important. So you kind of talked about a little bit about the future of mental health. Where do you want to see the mental health space be in the next 5 to 10 years? What do you think the growth of that looks like? It could be access, it could be coping mechanisms. You know, where do you see mental health growing into in the next 5 to 10 years?
I feel like mental health change is very slow. Just like with anything else, you know, we look at like, me and my coworkers are talking about Juneteenth, how it just became a federal holiday, you know, in 2021. Things are very slow to change in our system, but if it were up to me, I would love to see a lot more access of at least the basic skills, especially to the youth who, you know, like you mentioned, like that is when you're starting to form your identity. That is when you're really stepping into who you think you want to be, right? Obviously, that's going to continue to change up until even after your 30s. But I think there's so much power in authenticity and giving people the skills to really lean into their own personal strengths and realize how important their individual experiences are going to be for their story. You know, I would love to see like access like that. And I would also love to see more emphasis on somatic therapy. So, you know, I'm a CBT girl down.
Right.
Okay. Cognitive restructuring is like my thing. But I think there's so much power in understanding your body when your body feels safe, your mind and your heart and your soul feel safe. You know, so whether it is like EMDR, internal family systems, EFT, there's so many different somatic therapies that are really cool, like, you know, even getting into like yoga and movement and, you know, working out, things like that. I'm also a woo-woo girl, so you know, incorporating spirituality into therapy and not being afraid to talk about, you know, the soul and God and spirit. And obviously there are a lot of like Christian counselors, but speaking more to like the esoteric, not so much like organized religion, you know, talking about like things like Reiki and healing touch. Again, going back to like how much power there is in understanding your body, and, you know, feeling safe in your body. Yeah, so I think those are the two things: access and like different types of therapy, you know, not just talk therapy.
Nice. I love that. I think that's absolutely amazing. I appreciate all of that. Definitely shout yourself out, your Instagram.
Yes.
People can follow you.
I make mental health and creativity content, helping you transmute pain through creativity. You can follow me on Instagram at HIIGORJESS. I'm sure it'll be somewhere. But yeah, follow along. I don't charge. I don't have a subscription service or anything like that. I just want my people to heal.
I love that. And that concludes our episode. You already know it's your boy Mers. So happy to have Jess talking all things mental health. Just please remember, if you need assistance, you can definitely reach out to her on social media for her content. You can definitely, we've got a Hot to Believe. We'll have a hotline at the bottom. If you need help, you can definitely call. Listen, be yourself, get help. There's nothing wrong with going to see someone if you need it. It's your boy Mers.
It's your girl Jess.